Yeah, the Philippines and Libya have actually begun discussions on a bilateral labor agreement, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to the Libyan Embassy in Manila has submitted a draft bilateral labor agreement, which is now being studied by our Department of Labor and Employment back in the Philippines. So we're hoping that in the next few months, we would be able to sit down, either in Tripoli or in Manila, to discuss the said agreement and hopefully get to sign it. I was with the Labor Minister a few weeks ago, and just last week I was with Deputy Prime Minister Kajman, and we discussed the visit of a Libyan labor delegation to Manila. So this is also being arranged, and we hope that we would be able to sit down and discuss this agreement so that this would allow us to open the doors to renewed cooperation between our two countries with regards to manpower deployment. As I've said, we are currently studying the draft labor agreement that was presented to us by the Libyan side, and the draft includes cooperation, as you mentioned, that electronic link that would allow Libyan authorities to access our database. So as I've said, this would be subject to discussions between our two sides, and we're hoping that we would be able to sit down, as I've said, within the year, whether here in Tripoli or in Manila, to finalize this agreement. The Ministry of Health has asked us previously for more medical workers, like nurses and other hospital workers, to be deployed here in Libya. As you know, at the height of the presence of Filipinos here in Libya before 2011, we have, I was told, as many as 20,000 Filipinos, mostly nurses and other hospital workers. But unfortunately, the number has gone down to just 2,000 total in both medical and oil and gas sectors. We do have some teachers, faculty members in several colleges and universities across Libya. We've visited several hospitals also and private clinics, and in all these visits we have been told that there is a need for more Filipino nurses to be deployed here in Libya. Unfortunately, there are certain concerns that we're hoping we could address to allow us to open the doors for the deployment of medical workers back to Libya. For the past several years, our nurses here, most of them working in government hospitals, have been telling us of problems concerning the payment of their salaries and the delays in remittances. So these problems are outstanding, they're still there, and there's a need for Libyan authorities to look into this matter and help us find solutions so that we could address these concerns of our people. I've been talking to a number of our nurses. Most of them have been here in the 1980s, and they've been telling me that some of them have not received their salaries for months or even years. And we know there are problems in Libya right now, but we're hoping that the Libyan government could assist them, because they also have families in the Philippines who need the funds that they're sending to allow them to survive back home as well. So we conveyed this issue with both the Ministry of Labor and the Minister of Health in the past 2 years that I've been here, and we're hoping that we could find solutions to this particular concerns. And we're confident that given the improving situation in the country right now, the government could now focus on these issues so that our people could be in a better position to continue serving the Libyan people. As I've said earlier, before 2011, we had as many as 20,000 Filipinos working in Libya, most of them in the medical sector. And I was talking to some hospital administrators here in Tripoli, and I was told that once upon a time they had 800 to 1,000 Filipinos working in their hospital. So that's just one hospital. So it's unfortunate that due to a confluence of events that are not, of course, under the control of anyone, the number of Filipinos unfortunately had gone down. And one of the main reasons would be the conflicts that started since 2011. So this conflicts prompted my government to repatriate our people, and many of them decided to stay in the Philippines or find work elsewhere overseas. But some have returned, and some actually did not leave at all and have stayed here all throughout. I've met nurses who have been here since the early 1980s, and they're still here. In fact, at one time I met a nurse in her mid-60s with her daughter, who was born and raised and who studied here in Libya, with her Filipino husband, who was also born, raised, and studied in Libya. Both of them are nurses who went home to the Philippines to study and then returned to Libya. And they were with their baby daughter. So those are 3 generations of Filipinos who have been here in Libya. And, that made me realize how my people see Libya. Because you wouldn't have those kind of Filipinos staying here that long if the Libyan people, their employers, were not kind to them. So that's 3 generations of Filipinos who have been here. I was in Brega and I met a oil worker in his late 60s. And he had his son also working there. So that goes to show that, there's something about the Libyan people that, make my people want to stay, make my people not want to leave. In fact, if you would recall that when the conflict in Tripoli started in April 2019, my government issued calls for mandatory repatriation. But not a lot really accepted the offer for us to bring them home. We offered them, free tickets back to Manila, but we only had a few takers. And then that's when I realized how strong the bond of friendship, not even friendship, it's kinship between my people and your people, between the Filipino and the Libyan peoples. The ties are so strong, that my people would want to go home. I've heard so many good stories in the almost 2 years that I've been here in Tripoli. I didn't leave Libya since the crisis started, but until only recently when I went home. So for almost 2 years or a year and a half, I was here with them. And in my conversations with my people, all I could hear are good stories about the Libyan people. And when I talk to Libyans as well, and when we engage them in social media, I also could see how the Libyan people not only respect, admire my people, but also love them. So I've seen a different kind of relationship that, in my experience, I have not seen in other countries that I've been in. So I've been telling the Deputy Prime Ministers that I've talked to, the ministers I've talked to, how much the Philippines owe Libya. Libya, of course, has played a very critical role in supporting our peace efforts back in the Philippines, in the southern Philippines. But more than that, the people-to-people relations is something that I wish to emphasize. And as I've said, how many Filipinos have benefited from Libya? Because of Libya, hundreds, thousands of Filipinos were able to send their children to good schools. They were able to build good homes. They were able to have better lives because of Libya. And of course, as a way of giving back, my people, my government have been here. So since the conflict in 2011, when other countries moved their embassies elsewhere, transferred their diplomats to other places, we stayed. The Philippine Embassy has been here since it was established in the mid-1970s. We never left. In fact, we even moved to a bigger location here in Janzur to better serve our people. Our people, I've heard stories of some of our nurses who remained in their duty stations, even if fighting was raging outside the hospital and even inside. They were there to take care of the sick and wounded. So as I was saying, the Philippines and the Filipino people are here, standing with the Libyan government and the Libyan people. We suffer with you. We know the Libyan people are suffering right now, and my people are suffering with you, because that's one way for them to give back. They're not getting their salaries like other Libyans, but they're still doing their work. We sacrifice with you, and lately, because of COVID, we're also dying with you. We have 126 Filipinos, most of them nurses and other hospital workers, who tested positive for COVID while serving your people. Out of those 126, 6 have died. And some buried here, some we're bringing home. So, this goes to show really how strong the relationship is, how much both of us value each other. So it really pains me when I talk to some of our people and they tell me about the problems they've been encountering. And most recently, the recent decision to fix the exchange rate between the dollar and the Libyan dinar to 4.48. This really hurt some of my people, especially those working for government hospitals, who, unlike those working in the oil sector and some private clinics, are not getting paid in foreign currency, but in Libyan dinars. So they would really get hit hard by this. So in my meeting with Deputy Prime Minister Kajman, I told him, I wish to convey the sentiments of my people. And since I am their voice here in Libya, I hope I could ask the help of the Presidential Council in at least assuring my people that, their contribution to Libyan society, that you value their presence here, you value the way they've been here, especially our nurses, our midwives, who were there when you were giving birth to your children, who were there to take care of your sick, and who shared the pains when you lose loved ones. So I just need an assurance from the Presidential Council that, the Libyan government has not forgotten our people. And as I've told you earlier, my people have told me many great stories about Libya and the Libyan people, how they're treated like family, so that's why they don't want to go home. So when they do go home, especially those who have been serving here 30, 35, even 40 years, I just want them to go home bringing with them very good memories of Libya and not bitter memories. So that's why I want to appeal. We respect the decision of the Libyan government to do what is necessary to revive the economy and all. So even if this would hurt us, we would respect and support that. But we're just hoping that, some action could be taken to take into consideration the impact of these decisions on people who have been here during your low and even during your high. So we're hoping that we get to bring these concerns to the attention of higher authorities and hopefully have them take a closer look and see what they could do to allow my people, should they decide to go home, to bring with them only the best memories of Libya. That's what I'm hoping for.